Hey everybody, and Tony here, and the time has come once again. It's my top 25 favorite ChalkZone episodes, and as always, part 1 will be for entries 25 to 11, and part 2 will be for the final 10. Now, I'd like to mention something before I get into the actual countdown itself. Now, before I get into the actual countdown, I'd like to mention that ChalkZone was initially canceled on June 22, 2005 when it was at its 4th season. But it ended up being revived on June 11th, 2008 with, Rudy and Penny wearing different clothing and somewhat growing a little bit older, and the art style being a little bit more different than the earlier seasons. Now, with that trivia out of the way, let's get on to the list. At number 25, we have the Wiggies, in which Rudy, Penny, and Snap are venturing into this isolated island where they encounter a lot of different creatures and a lot of weird ones as well, and especially a worm that can shape itself to be an accordion. And Rudy, Penny, and Snap sing a little ditty about this mythical accordion worm as they play on it all together, only to encounter these weird creatures that have a habit of sucking on people's and animals' hair called the Wiggies. And these are pretty deadly creatures because once you encounter them, they will definitely go out of their way to devour all that head of hair, and you'll probably turn bald instantly. So when the magic portal ends up still being open, the Wiggies manage to get out of that portal and cause a lot of havoc to where Rudy currently lives. And, this is definitely a very high-octane episode in which the Wiggies do prove themselves to be very formidable foes, with them constantly causing havoc and sucking on people's hair. And it takes a lot of, courage from Rudy to bring all the Wiggies back to that isolated island, and the episode manages to end itself pretty sweetly with Rudy liking his new hairstyle, or lack of it, with him being bald, and with Penny trying out her new wig, and with Rudy and Penny constantly having a lot of fun with that new wig. So overall, this was definitely an episode that has really left a nostalgic feeling in my heart, because I first caught this ever since I was about 10 or 11, and I actually caught a lot of these episodes when I was at that age, and still managed to enjoy this one in particular to this very day. But that's not the only one that I managed to enjoy even to this very day. We'll get to that, in a lot of other episodes that will be mentioned here. At number 24, we have Future Zone, in which this is also the debut episode of a recurring villain in the show, but not as recurring as the Skrull, called Cranium 3, who is so convinced that the magic chalk can be used as a certain weapon of either mass destruction or power, and he calls it a materializer of different things. Only does he kidnap Rudy, Penny, and Snap that he wants to discover the secret of how to use this mythical chalk. So Rudy decides to show him what it takes, and he therefore creates Cranium 4, and the two manage to get themselves into such a bicker with each other to prove who is more superior than the other. So overall, this is an episode that I also enjoy to this very day, mostly because of the constant batter between Cranium 3 and Cranium 4 to prove which one is the better of the two robots. At number 23, we have Rudus Tabootus, in which we have Mr. and Mrs. Tabooty alongside Rudy traveling to Rome, and then they encounter the Colosseum, and Rudy is rather interested to see what is ChalkZone's version of ancient Rome. Only then does Rudy draw the portal and enter inside ChalkZone's version of ancient Rome does he meet Snap. And, well, they basically have a ball while exploring the entire city and even getting themselves into a lot of gladiator matches. It's not until they encounter this one gladiator who is also the Caesar's favorite by the name of Odiferous Maximus, who is a gladiator that is extremely infamous for his pungent stench, hence his name. And for those of you who don't know, odiferous means, well, it smells really, really bad, and, well, you could say that Odiferous Maximus does live up to that, and he is constantly jealous of Rudy, well, one-upping him every single time that he wants to put a stop to it. Only then does his plans constantly backfire, does Rudy come out as pretty much the champ in this episode. And like I said, this is an episode that I really enjoyed ever since I was about 10 or 11, and one that has still left me with such fond memories. At number 22, we have French Fry Falls, which is basically a flashback episode to how Rudy first met Cyclops, now called Biclops. So, Rudy, Penny, and Snap venture into the Amazing River, only to encounter, well, some different turbulences as well, thus encountering the French Fry Falls and encountering Biclops, who is formerly known as Cyclops, and this is basically a clip show of how Rudy first met this really wonderfully fun recurring character. And interestingly enough, this was also an Oh Yeah cartoon short by the name of Amazing River, which was aired back in the late 90s. And this was also an introductory episode of Biclops, formerly known as Cyclops, who was once upon a time this one-eyed giant who kept guard of the chalk mines and forbade anyone to, like, really take the chalk that was present in this mine. And he basically did not like how his creator made him out to be. And his creator was, well, based on the vision that he had, a pretty rotten kid who drew his creation as just one eye but extremely clumsy. Only then does Rudy have a solution to solve Cyclops' problem. Why not give him two eyes and, well, maybe one day he might end up repaying him with a pair of pants. Only then does the flashback end, and, well, Biclops basically gives Rudy the liberty of taking as much chalk as he wants from the magic chalk mines. And Rudy pays him back in return with giving Biclops a pair of tartan, well, style pants. And this was an episode that was really nostalgic and has really left such a warm, fuzzy feeling in my heart, mostly because, well, when you think about it, Biclops was also voiced by Roger Bumpus, the same voice actor who was also the voice of Squidward. So hearing Squidward's voice actor voice this extremely fun character was definitely a huge enjoyment factor that I really got from this episode. At number 21, we have Disappearing Act, in which we see Reggie Bullnerd constantly being a jerk towards everyone, as he usually is, by, well, ruining Penny's science experiment and then tearing up Rudy's drawing. And then when he decides to put on a magic show, Rudy decides that the best thing he should do is pay him back. And, well, this all starts off with, well, Reggie stating that he's going to do a disappearing act. Does Rudy willingly volunteer just to get back at Reggie? And then, well, the episode continues further with, well, Snap deciding that they should definitely play a prank on Reggie. And they hired this female fly with a very funny accent who decides to masquerade her voice as Rudy just to get back at Bullnerd, and this is an episode that was really enjoyable, mostly because this is definitely an episode that was really satisfying in seeing Reggie Bullnerd get his just desserts. And it was definitely handled in a very fun way. And to see Reggie go really crazy and go totally bonkers was just so much fun when he thought that Rudy ended up being gone forever, and he was constantly being haunted by, well, the quote-unquote ghost of Rudy. I thought this episode was just a lot of fun. At number 20, we have Here to Stay, which is a Snap episode involving a mustache who constantly wants Snap to sort of, like, accept him, and the mustache basically wants to stay with Snap. Only then does Snap feel rather irritated by the mustache's presence because he has to get his peanut butter and jelly sculpture to an arts festival. So the mustache feels left out. Only then does he encounter a snake-like razor creature who wants to eat the mustache up for good. And we get one of the most epic lines said by Rudy, in which he says, "Let's dance." And he throws the peanut butter sculpture to the creature, only for it to malfunction. And we get a really sweet little moment with Snap finally accepting the mustache as his own friend. And I thought it was just a really cute moment between the both of them because, well, it was just a lot of fun when you put this Snap episode into perspective. At number 19, we have Gift Adrift, in which we have Rudy presenting a surprise gift for Joe, his father, for his birthday. And it's nothing more than a vacuum cleaner that is pretty much all the rage, until Rudy decides to hide the vacuum cleaner into ChalkZone. Only does that vacuum cleaner cause a lot of damage, especially to a lot of the denizens, sucking in every single one of them, and even all of the backgrounds, all the landscapes. Only does Rudy realize that he has to pretty much save ChalkZone, and he pretty much has a great idea. If the vacuum cleaner can't really take that much anymore, he decides to, well, get a pin and decides to blow that vacuum cleaner up, and everything goes back to normal. So this is yet another episode that I watched ever since I was about 10 or 11, and one that still manages to hold up to this very day. At number 18, we have Rapunzel, in which this is also the debut episode of one Queen Rap Sheba, who is a very well-known denizen of ChalkZone and is a very well-known R&B singer who is very bubbly and one that Snap also has a crush on as well. So we get to see a very catchy and very wonderful musical episode starring Queen Rap Sheba, and let me just tell you that the Rapunzel theme from this episode is pretty much an earworm, and one that I first listened to when I was very, very young, and one that has become a part of my childhood, and even has become a part of me as I grew up, and one that I still enjoyed even to this very day. At number 17, we have the Quicksand Man, which is a revival ChalkZone episode that I managed to really enjoy, mostly because of its atmosphere, and also because the Quicksand Man was also another favorite character of mine in this show. He manages to really screw people ChalkZone up by giving them their worst nightmares, only for Rudy to realize that the best thing to beat the Quicksand Man in his own game is to conquer his fears. Now, basically, the Quicksand Man does this sort of attack in which he throws some quicksand and for like a certain someone to really be drowned, only to be transported into this weird world where he or she is constantly faced by his nightmares. And I thought that this episode was really well done in terms of its atmosphere and overall enjoyment. And at number 16, we have Vampire Cannibals in New York, in which we have, well, a disgruntled Rudy feeling like his creation, Vampire Cannibals, was not being accepted by an editor in New York. And, well, he's actually surprised that there are these vampire cannibals that are running amok in ChalkZone, only for him to realize that it's actually the editor's son, Joey, who drew these figures. You know, I really thought that this episode was really enjoyable and really well done, but I really wish that there could have been a lot more character interactions between Rudy and Joey because, well, when you put this into perspective, they kind of have similar personalities and they have similar interests. And they definitely have a lot of, well, chances of having great chemistry with each other in terms of being friends. So I really wish that there could have been a lot more episodes starring Joey and even having a lot more adventures with Rudy and Joey. But even then, this episode manages to be very enjoyable and even with its horror comedy aspects. And I thought it was just so much fun. At number 15, we have Hole in the Wall, which I thought this episode was really sweet, mostly because this concerns Rudy and Penny going into an old school in which Joe used to go to. And the reason why this school is something special for Rudy is because his parents are celebrating their marriage anniversary, and he wants to give the note as a wedding anniversary gift to both of his parents. And he stated the history behind this note was that Joe, when he was a young kid, was totally impressed by Mildred's very accomplished spelling capabilities that he ended up being so shy that he ended up hiding the note deep down in one of the floorboards of the classroom. Only until then do we realize that we see a greedy moneymaker by the name of Vinny and his dim-witted construction worker brother, Ricky, who wants to take over the school and make a certain fun land park out of it. And Rudy can't stand the sight of this, and he draws a portal to ChalkZone only to accidentally leave it open, only for Vinny to come into the portal and totally be fascinated by a lot of the weird and wonderful aspects that ChalkZone has to offer. And only then does, the school ends up being, condemned and deconstructed, and, at first, all hope seems lost for Rudy. But then the note falls on the ground, and Rudy reads the poem, which I thought was really sweet. And, it was just a very sweet episode as well, and it was also combined with a lot of fun elements coming from Vinny and Ricky, especially with Vinny's, constant wants of wanting money, especially from the denizens of ChalkZone. Only then does Rudy have a duty to really kick Vinny out of ChalkZone, never to have him say what was going on in there in the first place. And in essence, Vinny is totally like Simon the Monster Hunter and Mr. Crocker, that it becomes pretty scary. These three characters are very well known for being very eccentric and wanting to prove that something that is fictional is real, and they would go out of their way to prove that there is something real beyond the supernatural. So overall, this was definitely an episode that was really sweet and also just a lot of fun. And one that has left a huge smile on my face, and one that was also very nostalgic as well. At number 14, we have Waste Mountain, in which we have, Joe's cheeseburger smoothies not selling so well, only for Rudy to be entrusted that the cheeseburger smoothies should be taken care of and being shipped to the dump. Only then does Rudy decide to take the shortcut way and send the huge bags of cheeseburger smoothies to ChalkZone, only for it to wreak havoc to ChalkZone, and then for Rudy to fix his mistake, and he pretty much learns something that he has to take responsibility for his actions, and he realizes that yes, what he did was pretty foolish, but at least he managed to really take responsibility for it. And this was an episode that still left me with a huge smile on my face, and one that has a lot of nostalgic quality as well. At number 13, we have Chalk Queen, in which we have Penny really frustrated at Rudy because he was entrusted with the responsibility of drawing figures for Penny's, or even their, biology project. And Penny is pretty pissed about it, and Rudy tries to make it up to her, only for Penny to encounter Scrawl once again, and, well, he basically tempts her with the whole power of being Queen of ChalkZone. And this episode definitely has a twist ending that I didn't really expect, but it was still a lot of fun, and it was just very satisfying and very much epic in its own way. And that's just also why I really love this episode. The fact that there was this twist ending really made this episode a lot of fun and even worthwhile watching. At number 12, we have the terrible 2.5s, in which we have Rudy's baby cousin Sophie coming in for a visit alongside his aunt, and Sophie discovers ChalkZone, and, well, because at first Rudy is rather perturbed by Sophie's abilities to only draw scribbles, but in ChalkZone, those scribbles are actually very useful, especially considering that Sophie is pretty much a natural talent. So Sophie is also an example of the chip off the old block, well, from being Rudy. Not to mention, it's really sweet seeing a lot of character dynamics between Rudy and Sophie, and especially with that of, well, Penny and Snap and Sophie as well. I thought that Sophie was a very fun character, and surprisingly enough, Sophie was also voiced by Grey DeLisle. I initially thought that Tara Strong voiced her because, considering the fact that E.G. Daily and Tara Strong worked on a lot of projects as either siblings or friends, like Rugrats and the Powerpuff Girls, I almost expected Tara Strong to voice little Sophie. I was pleasantly surprised that Grey DeLisle voiced her, and it also shows that, well, Grey DeLisle is definitely a versatile voice actress who manages to really put her all in this role. Even though it's a minor character, I still enjoyed her performance as little Sophie. And this episode was just a lot of fun, mostly because we really get to see Sophie being such a natural artist, even though Rudy does have his doubts. But still, it's so much fun seeing Sophie do her thing, and, well, what more can I say about this episode? This episode was just a lot of fun, all thanks to Sophie, and she was just definitely a very enjoyable character on her own rights. At number 11, we have Snapmobile, which is yet another Snap episode, which focuses on Snap really desperate for a car, especially considering that there is this car show that is coming up in ChalkZone. So he decides to purchase a car that takes his commands literally. Like, for example, Snap wants to go to the moon and all that. Or he uses the term, it's gonna be going to the moon and all that. The car literally takes Snap to the moon, only for Snap to crash down to the sea, and a lot of hijinks happen. But nonetheless, he manages to win the car contest for being the most creative. And this is also an episode that is really great in terms of its slapstick humor, and it really shows it in spades, even though this is a Snapisode that only lasts for about 3 to 5 minutes. But still, it's a very fun episode nonetheless, and it really is a testament to show that it can be a lot of fun in terms of its slapstick humor. Well, that's all for now. Be sure to tune in tomorrow as I talk about the final 10 favorite episodes of ChalkZone. So until then, see you later, everybody.